Hey everyone, welcome to our next episode in the Good Deeds Day Facebook Live mini-series. In this series, we're having conversations with our partners all over the world about the projects being done during the corona pandemic and how their focus has shifted. And of course, we're going to be sharing tips for you for wherever you are in the world. I'm Hannah Voino, and I lead International Good Deeds Day together with Kenan Ravino. So today, my guest is one of our own. Ido Lotan, he's the CEO of Ruach Tova, the Volunteer Center of Israel. And Ruach Tova connects between volunteers and organizations that need volunteers and works with companies to engage their employees in volunteering. Ruach Tova is also the organization that created and leads Good Deeds Day in Israel and around the world. So Ido, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm excited to get into talking with you about the Volunteer Center. And before we dive in, whether you're joining us live right now or catching us later on, please say hi in the comments and let us know where you are in the world. And of course, feel free to ask questions or share your thoughts. We'd love to hear from you. So Ido, for those that are less familiar with the work of Ruach Tova, can you share a little bit about what we've been engaged in pre-corona times?
Yeah, of course. Ruach Tova is an NGO that promotes and advances volunteerism in Israel. Our two main goals, not the formal goals, but our two main goals, or the two areas that we work, is to make volunteering more reachable, more accessible, and more diverse in Israel. And the second one is to increase the percentage of volunteers in Israel in a way that it becomes an integral part of their lives and the more valuable part of the Israel's culture. So in order to achieve those goals, we work closely with all three sectors. Of course, the government sector. We work mainly with the municipalities on creating better volunteering platform for their residents and promoting, as you said, the notion of doing good by executing the national GDD in Israel. So that's how we work with sort of a government or municipality sector, the local government sector, and the business sector. With the business sector, we create an in-depth yearly volunteering plan based on unique model which focuses on employees' preferences rather than management. And the social sector, the voluntary sector, if you will, we operate an advanced online search engine for volunteering project in every field all over Israel. And our website basically allows everyone who seeks volunteer to simply navigate between thousands of opportunities and sign for the one that suits him or her best. That's basically what we do in Israel. It's important to say that we're a non-government organization, so we don't have the authority to do all these things, and that makes it a challenge sometimes. But our main strength, I would say, is to be able to our ability to form partnerships and collaborations between all three sectors in order to advance, as I said, volunteer in Israel.
Amazing. And so most of the opportunities are really just found on our website. You can search for the kind of opportunity and where in the country. And these are mostly hands-on projects, or they were, right?
Yeah, it's not our projects, by the way. We do not operate volunteer work, but we engage and make it accessible for organizations that do volunteer work and need the volunteers to do that on our platform and to be able to promote their projects on our website. And that's how we get those volunteers from their couch to the door of the organization.
So walk us through a bit what happened from, let's say, early March as Corona made its way to this part of the world. And, all of the projects that we promote essentially on our site are all hands-on projects. So walk us through that shift and how we found ourselves trying to address the needs of the community.
Yeah, so in order to walk through of how we acted during the COVID-19 pandemic, it's important to understand the wider context of the field that we were in, operating in, and the COVID-19 pandemic actually basically caught everyone by surprise. Uh, put put us in a social isolation and changed the rules of the game completely. And when I say that the rules of the game changed, I mean that volunteering, which is ultimately based on a physical act, could not happen during in quarantine. And second, the balance of powers, quote unquote, within the volunteer field had changed. Business firms weren't necessarily the address for support, since they had to cope with the consequences of the pandemic themselves, and the same goes to philanthropies. So we couldn't, or the social sector could not approach the same way, approach the philanthropies and businesses the same way they did before. And the other thing that happened is that many people that are usually considered as potential volunteers became beneficiaries. So within those limitations, the volunteer sector had to operate. The government was busy trying to assess and react. Businesses were trying to plan ahead, and the rest of us did what we usually do: seek for guidance and try to assist the best way we can. So the NGOs try to be valuable within limited tools and uncertainty with regards to the workforce. So that was the main framework of how the field that we operate in. But it also, I must say that the field was filled with good intentions, at least at the beginning. There were a lot of good intentions, lots of efforts took place without clear focus and with little collaborations. The collaborations came about 2-3 weeks after when everything started. But surprisingly enough, the fact that everyone was at home also created many opportunities. Independent initiatives and resources could be found anywhere. For instance, programmers started to work on new apps geared to connect between needs and its solutions, and professionals try to contribute their skills and experience. And, and above all, there was Zoom. Uh, at first, everyone felt so lucky that we live in an era where internet, video conferencing, and social media can be found almost in almost every household. And the world had never felt so small. But as much as it was a global pandemic, very quickly we realized, all of us, I think, that the solutions are to be found within the community. Much like before, we were dependent on our family, friends, neighbors, and local organizations. So that was the arena. That was the I don't know, the field and the new rules that we had to operate in during COVID-19. So that was uh, the basis of what we had to face when we needed to cope with COVID-19.
And so during that arena, during that landscape that you outlined of, the government was focusing on one thing, the third sector was scrambling to try to figure out how to deal with these new demands and these new needs. where did Ruach Tova find its place, or how as well?
Yeah, so we at Ruach Tova, we realized almost immediately that it was no time to invent ourselves. Rather, we knew that we must quickly make the needed adjustments so we could do what we do best as efficiently and effectively as we possibly could. So no inventing ourselves, no, it was no time to do some new experiences and work in a different field or work in an arena that we don't know how to contribute because there was no time. Needs and necessities were everywhere, and we needed to find our place and do what we do best as best as we can. So first of all, we made some changes in our website to support volunteer opportunities based on the needs and the solution to be found during COVID-19. That was the first thing we wanted to do because I wanted to adapt our website to be as valuable as possible for the time. We called for all volunteer organizations as well as independent initiatives that came about to submit their projects so we could help them get relevant volunteers as fast as possible. Anyone basically could go online, search for volunteer opportunities close to their home on Google, and find all the options available in one place. That was basically what's ultimately what Ruach Tova does, and we wanted to do it as best possible during COVID-19 time as well. Sorry, and more importantly, uh, volunteers or people that submitted forms uh, were able to get all the information needed, simply fill out a simple form that directly went to the relevant contact person, and it could be done 24/7 because there was no middleman that we put in order to direct this, because the website and the way we uploaded the project did it itself, and that's how we were able to direct over 5,000 volunteers in a very short period to new projects that came about during the COVID-19, during the first month or so. And simultaneously, we worked very closely with representatives in municipalities everywhere in Israel, of course. We did that in order to make sure we understand the needs and the efforts that were done to solve them. Once we realized the weak spots, we try to act on them and support their efforts on those weak spots specifically. And for example, and I can give some examples of the types of needs that came about during that time. And for instance, food could not be delivered to institutions that were offering it during to those in need on a daily basis. Many elderly people could not get their medicine or medical treatment. Kids stayed at home with nothing to do, etc. Those are the types of new needs or new and the things that were in scarcity in order to cope with the COVID-19. So we usually have a wider view on the field, so we could learn how one municipality, for instance, dealt with a similar situation and help another municipality to implement these solutions in their city for their residents.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said earlier, the solutions many times were dependent on community members, on volunteers. So we helped highlight the needs and look for the relevant organizations, NGOs, or businesses to collaborate resources and skills. That's what we did on the local government level. And I can give some of the challenges and an example for how we worked with municipalities or local government. If
Yeah, I just want to underscore one thing, which I think is really crucial what you said, and I think there's a lot to learn here, is that we really focused on basically staying in our lane, doing what we're good at, not looking into growing in other ways, but doing what we're really good at and adapting to the new situation. And so since we have very strong relationships with NGOs in the country, we have very strong relationships with the municipalities, we were able to quickly get a pulse check on what are the needs that these NGOs are facing, what are the needs that the community is facing, and convert our website of volunteer hands-on opportunities to be essentially a virtual volunteer opportunities hub where people all the time can go in and choose a virtual project and choose a way that they can then help.
Yeah, and precisely. We usually try, as I said before, we wanted to do what we do best as we can. And we usually find the weak spots, we find the gaps, and we try to fill them or to build bridges to walk the volunteers to the right way so they can contribute the best to the overall effort. That's something that we did that we do all year, and especially during this pandemic time.
Great. So, yeah, I love to hear just a few examples of how we helped municipalities and communities address their needs, identify their needs, and address them, and how we were able to kind of emulate that with different municipalities in the country.
Yeah, and I'm gonna get into it, but I have to say that the main challenge, one of the main challenges, especially I can speak for Israel in general, for our field, and I can assume that it probably happened in other countries as well. But we, at least at first, some can say that even nowadays we were. There was a lack of overview and prioritization. And this is something in which we, as Ruach Tova, we have some experience, and that were the places and the areas that we could assist. So we helped find volunteers to do deliveries for of all kinds for the elderly. We also provided activity kits for families through municipalities representatives in order to lift the spirit, that which was another important aspect. We decided to celebrate GDD, even though it was postponed to an unknown date, or hopefully soon. But we wanted to celebrate GDD on a virtual way, and to focus this on support, entertaining through online challenges that call people to do good and to share the good with others. So that's some of the things. And another example that I can give on collaboration and collaborated effort that we did was we connected with one of the largest banks in Israel to purchase toys for kids in many Arab communities, and the toys were given by police officers. So that was the type of partnerships and collaboration that again we can do, or we do all year, but especially during the pandemic, that added more value to the act of volunteering once you take a big business and you help through police officers that wanted to become more accessible, especially in the Arab community, and close the circle in a way that everybody participates. So there was some of the things that we did. I have to say that we also have we had another challenge when we talk about businesses. So the challenge that we were facing was how to find ways for businesses to volunteer. It wasn't that easy. Uh, there wasn't a lack of motivation, but the challenge was to volunteer within the new and unusual limitations. So we had to think here outside of the box, suggesting unique ways in which they could offer their skills and the existing resources in order to support and to assist and contribute. So we approach, for instance, transportation companies to use their buses and trucks to deliver meals to institutions for people with special needs or the elderly. We suggested companies to purchase activity kits and toys, as I said, and board games for kids in need. Thousands of kits were purchased by businesses and delivered by volunteers to kids within communities. And this is another example of what we can do. And again, without inventing ourselves, but making the right adjustments to be more valuable. Um, and another thing that I can say of about businesses, small businesses, and professionals in general, employees could contribute their knowledge and expertise, even virtually. Of course, um, they couldn't reach out physically, but they could teach online lessons for school students. They could make phone calls to senior citizens to check on them and see if they need anything. They could advise small businesses owners that were facing financial difficulties or advice on other relevant areas of expertise. So those are the type of things that we did. Again, working with all three sectors and collaborate together. When I think of another example, I can say that during the year we offer online platform for companies, which allows their employees to choose where they want to volunteer, register as part of their volunteer work plan. And again, during COVID-19, we just needed to make, I'm saying just, but it's a lot, but we made the changes necessary to make new and improved or adjusted volunteer projects that could be done online for employees, so company can offer their employees with a bank of projects that can be done from their home. And it was not a physical volunteering, but it was a real act of volunteering. So that's basically, I think, sums up of what we did as Ruach Tova.
In terms of how we worked with companies and we shifted to offering more skill-based opportunities than we've done really in the past. Usually we're more focused on the hands-on, and we build portals for companies throughout the year to volunteer that's dedicated for the company. How do you see that coming into play in Israel, we're kind of slowly emerging out of Corona. And as we look towards this year, do you think that more companies are going to want to have opportunities to volunteer from the office or from home? Or do you feel that it's going to be more of a shift back to, in-person volunteering?
Look, first, I would hope that within time, it's not going to be it's going to take a while. Even when you started to come back to the office and go back to what we do, and I think volunteering essentially will wait for some time before they could go back to the way it's been done before. And we really don't know if it's just a phase, if it's a break that we're experiencing right now. So I don't predict that anything dramatically will change, even though it is possible right now to in Israel to go volunteer physically. But still, a lot of companies are adapting to the new situation, trying to see if they can bring back some of the employees that they had to let go or to leave for get them to leave for a short period of time. So it's going to change. I think that in the next few months, for sure, we will continue offering the things that we offer during COVID, maybe with some physical volunteering as well. But it's not going to change dramatically in the next few months or so. But it's still again, the perception that less companies or less employees were participating in the overall effort is misleading, because they wanted, they did act, but as I said before, we identified that they need to the type of volunteers. It's not that they're online, but they needed to rely on existing resources. As I said, the trucks, the buses, the operations that they do on a daily basis, they can collaborate some of the efforts and try to use those resources to do some good without uh, having an experience endeavor. I don't know, for the time being. So that's how I think businesses will continue to act.
Mm-hmm. And I think too, what's unique about what we did in Israel is really continuing to build the partnership. So it's essentially creating that triangle partnership between us, a company, and another company or a community to help connect people to solve these challenges and these issues. And I think that served us well and was a big strength into bringing people together and helping people get involved and also to tackle these issues. Mm-hmm. We have a question from our partner, Archimand, who's in Rwanda, and he leads a volunteer center in Rwanda. And he's asking, Ido, how do you cope with permission requests to intervene as volunteers where physical presence is needed, especially if I'm understanding this correctly, especially, right now during Corona, I mean, different countries, there's different rules between if you can be outside, if you can't be outside, and and government regulations, and government is also focused on certain things. So how do we deal with these different requests that require a physical presence?
Yeah, that's a big challenge that we were facing. At least in Israel, we had to stay at home, but for necessary, how the government basically decided or said what's necessary. But for necessary needs, even in a household, we could go to grocery. We could go to a supermarket to purchase things. So the same. So we volunteer or physical volunteer got very close to the door. So up until the door. So if if a senior person needed the groceries and he couldn't get out because he just can't, what I could do as a volunteer is to purchase the groceries for him, bring it to the door, knock on the door, and walk away. So it wasn't the physical interaction, but there was a physical act of volunteering. So there wasn't the conversation or handshakes, but the volunteer act happened and delivered. So that was some of the things that we could do in order to avoid physical contact. That was the main issue here.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like, yeah, there was a lot of creativity on, being able to help people without kind of crossing that line of, being actually face to face with people, especially people that are most vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Great. Well, thank you for that question. If anyone else has questions, feel free to ask in the chat as well. I'm sure Ido would be happy to answer. Ido, what are some of the other creative projects that you saw happening in Israel, whether or not we were facilitating them or we heard about them?
That was another aspect that I actually the part that we try to do and what we do best, and what we do best is sometimes to being connected to one of the initiatives or one of the initiatives or the projects that we feel that are valuable for the field, and to help highlight and help the effort of this initiative without being actual part of it. So one of the things that happened during the time was very, was a big need during that time, is that one of the organizations basically opened an enormous call center from home that was gathering the needs of everyone. Basically, everyone could call and say, I need this, I need that, I need the delivery here, I need the medical medicines from there. And on the other hand, they were calling volunteers to register and to be on call, basically to say, I'm in Tel Aviv and I can be used. Tell me what to do. So and once they had the volunteers, a volunteer list, the database of volunteers everywhere that were ready to be on call, and on the other hand, a database of needs everywhere, they could call on those. On the neighbors, the volunteers that live nearby, and tell them, I need you to do this, to do that. And we felt that they have a very, they have a complete solution, because they were able to cope with thousands of calls and thousands of volunteers. And we put this project online, and we try to promote it everywhere, any way we can. In order to get volunteers to sign in and fill out forms, and that's how we, for example, interact or connected to a big project or a big initiative that we felt is a good answer for. And when we say good, a suitable answer or a suitable solution for a need, we mean that it's nationwide. It's not something it's being done locally in a specific area, but on a large scale everywhere. So that was an example for that.
Great. I'd love to hear if it comes to mind now, especially as we're 3 months into the situation. Have there been any kind of big lessons learned in the process as we've kind of looked inward as a volunteer center, and who we are and what we hope to be? Have there been any big lessons learned?
Yeah, there are some lessons to be learned. First of all, we have to make sure, because it's probably it's not over yet, and we have to make sure that the next time it will caught us again, it will catch us by surprise. We will not really be surprised, and we first of all, we maintain most of the collaborations and initiatives that we worked on during the COVID, and we continue working with those organizations or these collaborations, because again, it felt like a global pandemic, but it was really a very local one. Even the fact that we were isolated at home, we were reliable on our neighbors and our community. So one thing we learned for sure is that we need to find ways to create an ecosystem that is based on the local community, local organizations, local businesses, and the residents, because they're most of the time they are the solution. uh, every adjustment that we did to our website is ready for next time. So we can our website we rolled back to the way it was before COVID-19. It wasn't a big big changes, but still we put in front, we put all the projects that are related to COVID, and now they are different and totally different needs that and projects and organizations that need help. So it's a different time, but once we will be able to face another pandemic, we can in few hours we can prepare our website to work um, the same way it worked during the pandemic. And with businesses, as I said, we actually continue to work pretty much the same way we worked during the COVID, because it's in terms of the willingness and the ability of businesses to go back to the point it was before in terms of volunteering. It's not there. It's still not there, and there are a few months at least until it will go back to normal.
Right. And I think that's, important for everyone to keep in mind too, that no matter where you are in the world, this is not quite over yet. And we're all kind of holding our breath to see what it will be like, even in 4 or 5 months from now. But that there's still lots of ways that companies can engage their employees in volunteering. I mean, we totally shifted to virtual volunteering projects and ideas for corporates to engage their employees, and that's something that others can do as well by identifying what those needs are and connecting the employees to ways that they can help. So I think it's a big thing. Do you think that because of course right now a big focus is of course on just resources and supplies and food. Do you see us entering more into that skill-based volunteer opportunities for corporates?
Yeah, I think in general, there was, I know I talked about the Zoom and the fact that we live in a modern era with internet access most of the time and most of the places. It, I think it pushed years ahead the skill-based volunteering, and the fact that people actually realized very quickly that they can do a lot from home. They can volunteer a lot from home, from their work, and that's something that we try to engage for a while now. And I'm sure that in that aspect, same goes to the fact that we are doing this webinar here. People started to work. It's not it's just a replacement, but still, it's internet and virtual volunteering and skills-based volunteering will definitely become and will take an important role in the volunteering field, and that's a great thing, I think. And in general, that's another thing that we work most of the time is to minimize the distance between, as I said, the couch and the door, between the volunteer and the volunteers, the volunteer opportunity and the volunteer. And in this aspect, I think that most of the organization, the volunteer organization, understood that they need to put a lot of emphasis, or much more emphasis, on the accessibility of their opportunity, volunteer opportunity, and to look when they look for volunteers, they need to make sure that they are accessible. When I say accessible, it's just not just opening the door and answering the phone, is to actually hit the I forgot the term, but to call back to the volunteer once he approaches, give him service, customer experience or volunteer experience, and service are not they should become an important terms in this field. It's sometimes in the volunteering field, these terms are taken for granted, and I think that some of the things that I'm pretty sure that the organizations, those um, that need the volunteers will adopt, and that would be a great thing for volunteering.
Great. As we wrap up here, and on the note of what the future will look like, do you have any other thoughts or predictions on how we as a volunteer center, in terms of our lessons learned and shifting towards 2020 and the future, what our work will look like?
I have to say that, and that's something that we try to implement all the time. And as I said at the beginning, the fact that we're not an authority for volunteering, we're not part of the government. Uh, we have to be modest and in what we do. So we have to identify where we should and where we can become valuable for society, and not necessarily where we think we should be valuable. And that's an important lesson, because, as I said before, there wasn't. It was this situation lacked the overview, lacked the someone to direct us and look at us from above and tell us how it should be done and how we should connect to each other. And a lot of organizations did the same thing in a different way, and that thing happens even before. And as NGO, you have to understand the field, you have to understand the players, and you have to position yourself in a place where you can be valuable. And that's another lesson uh, that I think everyone, any organization, especially in emergency, should understand. Not to invent yourself, not to force yourself. Look for the weak spots. See that it's really not answered, and try to give an answer for that need.
Absolutely. I think that's also just great advice for everybody that's part of a volunteer center or addressing community needs as well, is to always look for where you might be needed and if that's a match for where you want to enter. And to also, of course, be thinking throughout the year, crisis or no crisis, what your place is and what your role is in society. I mean, we've got different players, we've got the government, we've got the laws, we've got corporates that want to do good as well. So, and of course, lots of other non-governmental organizations. So I think that's something to keep in mind, and perhaps a big lesson for this situation is to remember throughout the year, when we're not in crisis mode, to be asking ourselves these kinds of questions.
Definitely.
Amazing. Well, Ido, thank you so much for joining us. This was really great and really helpful, I think, to hear about how our volunteer center has pivoted and what's been going on in our minds. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Hannah. It was fun and pleasure.
Amazing. So guys, tune in next week. We're going to be talking with Elena Martin. She's the Spanish program manager at idealist.org. And we're going to be talking about what's been going on in Latin America. So that's going to be happening June 4th at 11 o'clock Spain time. So join us here then, and hope you all continue to have great days. Thank you.
Thank you.